Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. I've been trying to wrap my head around these observations and these numbers that we're seeing here for quite a while, for many days already, but now I think I finally have to make a video because it is pretty obvious what is happening here. In my opinion, there can only be one explanation for what we see, and that is that Germans in the north and in the west have stopped believing the science, they have stopped believing the regime. They all of a sudden became believers in pseudo-science and dangerous misinformation. Before that, in previous months, they have been firm believers of the regime, of the government, and they followed the orders from the pharmaceutical industry and from our experts in science and in the public and mainstream media. And you know also that in central Germany it was just the other way around. There people were rebellious and they didn't wash their hands and they didn't wear the masks, they didn't keep any distancing rules, and that is why the numbers were so high there. And also people repeatedly said that this has something to do with the jabs, because if you look at the German states, you can see that the mortality and infection numbers are high where less people were jabbed. And in those states, mainly in the west and in the north, where many people were jabbed, all these numbers were low. But now something drastically turned around here. Look at this data here. In southern Germany, or let's say in Bavaria in the southeast, and in central Germany, all these numbers are in free fall, even though we have an older population there, which would result in higher rates of complications, heavier symptoms, and higher mortality numbers, of course. But we all know that this is not the reason. No, it's the obedience and the belief in the elites, washing your hands, distancing, masks, and of course the jabs. But here it is, you cannot unjab yourself, at least I haven't heard about that yet, so that means the people in western and northern Germany, they were jabbed and they are still jabbed, so that means they couldn't have changed that fact about themselves. And also our dear friends in central Germany, Saxony, Thuringia, Sachsen-Anhalt and so on, they didn't all of a sudden embrace the jab in higher numbers, at least not significantly so, so that cannot be the explanation. The only explanation that is left is of course that in the north people started believing in pseudoscience and that they distrust the government all of a sudden, whereas people in Saxony have become loyal followers of government doctrine and firm believers in washing your hands 50 times a day. And I have to state that very clearly once again, if you don't believe that, well, then you are implying that there is something wrong with the pharmaceutical product that is advertised to us. And if I were you, I would think very long and hard about, saying something like that in public. We all know, of course, that even the mutually exclusive and self-contradicting claims that these companies made over the month are, of course, all simultaneously true. And if you don't believe that, well, then you just don't believe in science and you are a tinfoil hat wearing believer in pseudoscience and superstition. And you are also a member of the far right now. And maybe that is also what happened in the north. Maybe Bremen and Hamburg, just look at that. I mean, they're leading now in Germany when it comes to new infections. Maybe there is a push to the right. Maybe people all of a sudden embrace the teachings of a failed Austrian artist. Because it looks to me like as if Bremen, Hamburg and Schleswig-Holstein, they have a severe problem with right-wingers and xenophobes, as this table clearly shows. But let's not just talk about Germany, let's talk about other countries too. For many months, German journalists were saying that Germans should be ashamed of their country because our numbers are so high and not many people are accepting this pharmaceutical product. And in other countries, it's many, many more people. And as we all know, this is exactly like the score in a football match. And that is why we have to win against the others, right? We have to win against the UK and France and Spain, just like in football. And this is why we need to get our numbers up. Because we must be the winners, right? One headline was really that when people in the UK and France look at Germans, they just shake their heads in disbelief. What happened to those Germans? Why are they stuck in the Middle Ages? Why do they not believe in science? Well, of course, there are many things wrong with that claim, but the thing that was the most obvious is that at that time, and still the case right now, when you look at the rates of jabbing in those countries, at jabbing, not stabbing by the way, then it was and is still very much comparable. It was around 70%, give or take 1%, and that is not a significant difference, of course. So that was the first thing that was wrong. But then there are, of course, other European countries that do have a significantly higher rate of jabs, and that is, for example, Spain, which has around 80, and then Portugal, which has almost 90. Also Denmark and Ireland have significantly higher rates, and they embrace this pharmaceutical product to a much higher degree than Germany. But what do my sore eyes see when I look at the map of Europe, where the countries are color-coded by the incidence or by the more recent infection numbers? The redder the higher, or the darker the higher on this map here. And what do I see? Just those countries that have a really high jab rate, they have the highest number of infections right now. Isn't that weird? I mean, wouldn't that say... No, that can't be. That absolutely can't be true, right? They must all have stopped washing their hands. They're all believers in pseudo-science right now. Maybe they joined some weird winter solstice ritual and now they are different people. Their beliefs fundamentally changed and they reject the teachings of modern medicine and science. I mean, I know there are always a bunch of people, these tinfoil head guys, these contrarians that say, now, well, doesn't that show that this product isn't as effective, or it is not what it was advertised to do? Or some very few people even go one step further and say that it is actually making you more susceptible or weaker against this new let's not even say it. I mean, that is really dangerous misinformation right there, right? And of course, in the last 2 years, correlation was causation. But now, you see, now we're in 2022, and now all of a sudden, correlation doesn't equal causation anymore. See? Because we're in the new year, in the current year, and correlation was good enough to badmouth Central Germans, people in Thuringia and Saxony. Correlation was good enough to do that. But now we just go back to, hey, correlation doesn't equal causation, like, because we're in the current year now and it fits my agenda and my narrative. Alright, so I hope you all forgive me this not very serious, but well, at the same time, kind of serious video. I just didn't know how to present that in a straightforward, dry manner, like most of you know that I am wont to do. Big shout out to all my supporters and my subscribers. If you find that amusing or interesting, like, share and subscribe. Check me out on other social media platforms. And if you can spare it and if you want to, you can support my channel via Patreon or Subscribestar. The links are in the description box down below. Let me know how it is in your country, what the news are saying. Are they keeping quiet on that? Or are they doing their jobs and ask questions about these very problematic and interesting data sets and numbers that we're seeing here that seem to be in somewhat of a contradiction to what they told us all these months and years, you can say by now, I think. Enjoy the rest of your days. Servus, Kameraden.